my dear students. Here we are again in our, third lecture, which is sort of a follow-up of lecture 2, in which we continue in today's lecture. We continue talking about, the historical background of children's literature. In the previous lecture, we finished the last thing that we discussed, we end up with was, the period of the 1700s. Okay, today we start, with the 1800s period. Okay, during this period of time, as you here see, there is something important to mention here about considering this period as sort of in which children's literature boomed during this period of time for several reasons. One of them, which is printing. Printing became widely available for and affordable. Can be afforded by the public, by more people, not anymore, for only rich people. And then more people were learning how to read. So printing became widely available and affordable, and then people were learning, people were learning how to read. The population boom across the West meant there was a great children's literature market. This is also a third reason. And European colonization spread books, including those for children around the globe. So here we have, let's say, about 2-4 reasons that made this period sort of different from previous periods, making children's literature more widespread and spreading widely. Examples here we have The Crescent Moon by Rabindranath Tagore, illustration by his book or his story illustrated by Nandalal Bose. In India, during this period, we have also, magazines, and books for children, issued and appeared. One of the most, famous names, of, during this period in India, Raja Shiv Prasad, okay, who wrote several books in Hindustani, okay. Then we have some other names also, okay, for you to read. In Russia, children's literature or juvenile literature reached through a number of magazines which introduced Russian folk tales to readers and spread around the large country, around Russia. Children's literature in Western Europe and the United States began to change in the 1800s. Okay, this is also important note. The didacticism of the previous age began to make way for more humorous, child-oriented books. Chapbooks, okay, were still being published, many specifically for children. Abridging classic also, fairy tales, and popular novels like Robinson Crusoe all appeared during this period of time, or this century, or during the 1800s. Okay, some books were educational books, they were didactic books, then chap books also, which is chap books, which are, or type of books about young people, that it also includes poetry and tales and folk tales. Okay. Next, also a number of English books also appeared during the period of 1800s, like William Rousseau's story, poems, The Butterfly Ball in 1802. Then we have important ones like the one by Lewis Carroll, fantasy, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, appeared in 1863. 1865. Okay, Lewis Carroll with Alice Adventures in the Wonderland in 1865 in England. The first, then here is another important piece of information. The first English masterpiece written for children, okay, its publication opened the first golden age of children's literature in Great Britain and Europe that continued until the early 1900s. اللي هي Lewis Carroll's اللي هي Alice's Adventures in Wonderland in 1865. So that is considered to be the first English masterpiece written for children. Okay, and its publication opened what is called the golden age of children's literature in Great Britain, in England, and Europe in general. And that continued until early 1900s. Then another important, novel and writer of this period هو Carlo Collodi, an Italian writer, with his novel, the famous novel here, The Adventures of Pinocchio, which is the novel that you are assigned to do or assigned to read. Not, as I said before, not all of it, so you're assigned to read at least, I think, 8 chapters. The first, about 4 or 5, and then the last 4 or 5 chapters according to the syllabus. You just see the syllabus, please. Then there is also another famous name and famous title, اللي هو Mark Twain, with his novel Tom Sawyer in 1876. That is in the United States. Okay. Then there are some others to be read. In 1900s period of time, okay, during this period in India, many writers, appeared, with good quality type of writing. Type of writing, for children, of course. The first, full-length children's book in the 1900s, that was by Kharkhar Mahadev by Narayan Dixit, okay, which was serialized in one of the popular children's magazines in 1957. Serialized means this book that was put in serials, okay, in series, one by one, in serial form, arranged or published in serial form. Then other examples, from Bangladesh, Bengali children's literature. Then again, Indian books or books from India. Then next paragraph we have examples. An example from China, the effect of Chinese Revolution in 1911 and World War II. Okay, the World War II had its effect on children's literature and children's, publication. The World War II brought political and social change that, revolutionized children's literature in China. Okay. So Chinese children were reading, in that time, some translation of the Aesop's fables and the Western fairy tales, besides the Arabian Nights. The Arabian Nights, of course, very famous among the Arabs, but as we said before, it's not, of course, originally Arabic. Okay, اللي هي ألف ليلة وليلة. Okay, the 1,000 night and the 1,001 night. Sorry, 1,001 night. Okay. Next is again in the same period, Chinese Revolution of 1949 also changed the literature again. Okay, many children's writers were denounced. okay, يعني were being criticized, but you know, Tiani or Tiani and Di Xingtao continued to write for children and created works that aligned with Mao's ideology, okay, according to يعني Mao's ideology, Mao's, you know, way of thinking or teachings. In 1990, we have General Anthology of, this is the title of General Anthology of Modern Children's Literature of China, okay, which is a 15, this is a 15-volume anthology of children's literature since the 1920s was released. So, يعني an anthology, you know, اللي هو sort of, you know, a major reference, you know, a book that includes, you know, pieces of literature from يعني starting, you know, from 1920, okay, and on, okay. That was, you know, sort of an anthology published or, you know, found in China, that, you know, includes, you know, literature of different kinds, you know, in China since 1920s, since 1920s. Then China's non-fiction gained great importance in Russia at the beginning of the century, okay, some more importance. 10-volume children's encyclopedia was published between 1913 and 1914. Realism took a gloomy turn by frequently showing the maltreatment of children from lower classes, okay, and here when we talk about realism, this is an important point, we'll come to it later, later in the course, maybe يعني maybe in lecture 5 or 6, I'm not sure, okay. The most popular, this is important name, the most important boys material was Sherlock Holmes, okay, and similar stories from detective magazines, okay. People often label the 1920s as, okay, important, but in Russia here, remember, people often label the 1920s as the golden age of children's literature in Russia. In 1932, professional writers in the Soviet Union, the USSR Union writers, they formed this union, okay, of writers, which served as the writers' organization of the Communist Party, okay, which, with a children's branch, okay, this union had a children, or has, a children branch. The official oversight of the professional organization brought children's writers under the control of the state and the police. Okay, more political changes in Russia after World War II brought further changes in children's literature. Again, here we have an important piece of information. The golden age of children's literature ended with World War I in Great Britain and Europe. And the period before World War II was much slower in children's literature, or children's publishing. That is in Britain and Europe. In 1950s, the book market in Europe began recovering from the effects of 2 world wars. In Britain, Dudley Smith's the 101 Dalmatians was published in 1956, and you know, Roald Dahl wrote, you know, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in 1964. Children's fantasy literature remained strong in Great Britain through the 1900s. In America, during the 1900s, children's literature sparked the publication in Chicago of one of its most famous books in 1900, which was the L. Frank Baum's fantasy novel here, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Okay, this is also a very famous title here. Okay, between the World Wars I and II, between the two wars, the field continued to grow. The field of children's literature continued to grow in North America, which was largely due to the growth and influence of libraries and in both Canada and the United States. The American Library Association began awarding the Newbery Medal, okay, the first children's book award in the world, in 1922. Then there was also the Caldecott Medal for illustration, followed in 1938. The already vigorous growth, the real growth in children's literature became a boom in the 1950s, and children's publishing became big business for people to make living. Okay, in 1952, American journalist E.B. White published Charlotte's Web, which was described as one of the very few books for young children that face squarely the subject of death, exactly or particularly or precisely the subject of death. In 1997, J.K. Rowling published the first book in the Harry Potter series in England. Okay, this is also a famous title, the Harry Potter series in England. Despite its a huge success, the children's book market in Britain suffered at the end of the century due to a difficult economy and competition from television and video games. But however, picture books continue to do well. Then here we come to the last part of the historical background, and last period to be discussed here, to about the modern time. Okay, about today's period of time. Okay, we talk about here the modern time, the 2000s. The 2000s, we talk about here the most important, issue in the 2000s. Okay, the 2000s, scholarship, professional, or during the modern time, we find children's literature being dealt more seriously, and is considered as a separate specialization and major to be taught at universities with special departments to take care of this type of literature, and then making scholarships available, okay, for students to study children's literature, and then to support researches on children's literature. So professional organizations, dedicated publications, individual researchers, and university courses conduct scholarship on children's literature, because children's literature as a course was not something that you could find in the past, but it's something that you may consider sort of a characteristic or a feature of the 2000 or of the modern days. Scholarship in children's literature is primarily conducted in these different disciplinary fields: literary studies, literature and language departments, library and information science, and education. Typically, children's literature scholars from literature departments in universities, English, German, Spanish departments, you know, departments of English, departments of German, Spanish, conduct literary analysis of books. This literary criticism may focus on an author, a thematic or topical concern, genre, period of time, or literary device used in literature for children. The results of this type of research and typically published as books or articles in scholarly journals, including these journals, including Children's Literature Association Quarterly, another two, Children's Literature in Education, and a third one, International Research in Children's Literature. Last paragraph here we have on this page, and you know, for this lecture, most educational researchers studying children's literature explore issues related to the use of children's literature in classroom settings. They may also study topics such as home use, children's out-of-school reading, or parents' use of children's books. Teachers typically use children's literature to augment classroom instruction, to increase classroom instruction. Scholarly associations and centers include the Children's Literature Association and the International Research Society for Children's Literature. Okay. Now, by the end of this page, okay, or this, you know, slide, here we come to the end of this, you know, of this part of the course, اللي هو discussing historical background of English literature. So we have already discussed the the historical background of children's literature in two lectures, اللي هي lecture 2 and 3, and that's of course all for that's all regarding the history of English literature. Then now we start talking about the genres of literature related to children's literature, and of course the most important genre and the oldest and the most known اللي هو poetry. So next lecture اللي هو lecture number 4 we'll discuss something related to children's poetry with examples and samples of children's literature. Okay, thank you very much all, and that's all from me today and in this lecture, and see you soon in our next lecture اللي هو as I've just said اللي هي related to children's poetry. Thank you very much and see you again. Assalamu alaikum.